wanted to go ahead and do a little like Q&A. It was supposed to be a catch up, but you guys didn't really ask any questions to catch up. It was more so surrounded about like dating questions. Very specifically, you guys wanted to ask relationship questions, so I was like, F it. Let's just do a little like relationship Q&A. Gio will not be joining us because he doesn't really want to be on camera like that, and I obviously want to respect his decision. So it's just gonna be me answering these questions, and I hope that I can speak on his behalf because we're on the same page about pretty much everything. So hope that you guys can take something away from this or just enjoy. Get your snacks, get your water, stay hydrated, all the things, and let's begin. So first question, I guess is a life update, but it's you're moving. What are you guys looking for in a house? Yes. So this current house that we're living in, we've been here for 3 years. It's been a very long 3 years. We love this house. We love the neighborhood. It's very close to everything, but I feel like we've outgrown the space because, as y'all know, I film back there. So this is very much in our like central living space. We kind of live in a townhome. This is the main living area. Obviously the kitchen's back there. I'm in the current living room, and then, you know, that's like the dining room area and then a random little corner. So whenever I film, Gio just has to be upstairs in his room, not really, you know, doing or saying much at all. So I was like, you know what? We need a bigger space. Like we need a 3-bed, 2-bath. I can have my own little office filming space, and I can just like decorate it the way that I want to, and obviously so he can like move freely in the house. We have very specific, I guess I have more specific qualifications that I look for in a house. First of all is natural lighting. I don't want to turn my lights on, essentially. I just want to rely on natural lighting to fuel the light source in my house. This house, guys, has some of the best natural lighting that I've seen in a house ever. Like we have a lot of windows in the living room area as well as the upstairs area, so the house is pretty much lit like all the time, and even when it's, you know, super downcast and raining such as today, still pretty bright. I also really like modern appliances, just modern finishes and the hardware and the cabinetry, doors, handles, things like that. I work from home and I film at home. I have to be in a space that's like visually appealing, so that's just like something that I'm willing to pay a little bit more of a premium for. That's pretty much it in terms of what I'm needing. And then for Gio, he just needs to be around 15 minutes or so from work because he drives to work every single day, as well as Google Fiber and a gas stove. Next up, a little bit more of a loaded question, but can you talk more about why you and Gio don't want children? I feel like I've talked about this multiple times now, but just to reiterate, in case those of you on YouTube at least are new to like me answering this question, as well as just wanting to feel less alone maybe, because I don't know, I feel like this topic is very much taboo. I honestly did not realize until 6 months ago that I for sure did not want children. And this stems from like way back, right? Growing up, middle school, high school, I feel like every single person was talking about kids. Like, I want X amount of kids, I want a boy first or a girl first, or, you know, I want to play dress up with my girls, or like I have this and that name for my children. And it was like motherhood was their biggest joy in life to look forward to, and it was just the next step that they wanted to do. I never felt that. Every single time I've talked to people about kids, I've only talked about it because it was the thing to talk about. I just didn't really develop any thought about it. It was just like, yeah, I'm gonna have 3 kids, I want a boy first, and these are the names that I want. But I never really felt it deep in my soul that I wanted kids or that motherhood was the thing for me, and I just never thought about my life with kids. It was just something that I said. I just hadn't developed my thoughts yet because, you know, I was like freaking 14 years old, right? Just kind of having that thought in mind. Fast forward to me moving to Austin, me rescuing Nala. That was my first time like having to take care of something other than myself and, you know, my sister or whatever. But like I had full responsibility over this animal, and that was really daunting. That was really scary because Nala was my first dog. It took us a long time to like really bond. I feel like I exhibited a lot of traits of impatience, constantly wanting to be in control, and it was really difficult for me to like let go of that control. Now I just let go and let God with this dog, but before it was just really difficult, right? So it just kind of got me thinking like, wow, how would I really be as a mother? Like, could I exhibit traits of patience and understanding and letting go of control, and whatever happens happens? That's just never been me. It's never been my personality. I very much like to be in control of things, in control of my emotions, and I realized that not anytime soon would I be ready for motherhood. Like, I just knew that if I brought a child into this world, it wasn't going to be something that I was ready for, and it might not be something that I'd be ready for within the next like half a decade or so. So I sought therapy, and even after therapy, like I've just unlearned a lot of behaviors that I've grown up with, and, you know, things like that through nurturing through my parents or whatever, but I still felt some type of way about kids. And then got a corporate job and everything, and I was just working, and I started to, earn more money to travel and things like that. After Gio and I's first trip, second trip, third trip, I just realized that I loved to travel. I just didn't like to be stuck to one place. I liked having the freedom of doing whatever the fuck I wanted, and that we had the money to do that. If we were to have kids, I just feel like that type of financial burden, and the only reason why I say burden is because I truly think about it like that. I don't know if mothers think of it as like I'm saving up to, ensure that my children has a good life. To me, saving up for a child is a burden, and that just alone tells me that I'm not ready to have kids. But I've just never stopped having that feeling for one. Now that I've talked to Gio about this, I just kind of like tossed the idea around, like, what if we never had kids? Like, how would you feel about that? To be fair, in the 8 years of us dating, we've only talked about kids maybe a handful of times. I know a couple of my friends who regularly have conversations with their significant others about having kids, how they would teach them certain things or go about iPhones, like would they give them a smart device? I just never had a conversation with Gio about that, not because we didn't want to talk about it. It's just something that never naturally came up, where it's like, if our kids lied to us, what would we do? Or like, if they did drugs, like, we just never cared to have that conversation. It just never popped up. And I think that's also the reason why I felt comfortable presenting that idea to him, knowing that in the past 7 to 8 years of us dating, we have only ever talked about kids like a handful of times, and it was just never anything serious. It was just like, what do you think about this name? What do you think about that name? So I brought it up to him, and his initial reaction was like, you never want kids? And just the word never is very daunting. And so it kind of took me aback, like, whoa, do I never want kids? Like, never is kind of a crazy word. The more that I thought about it, the more I was like, I'd be okay with never. There's just so much to see. There's just so much to do. I just don't know at what point in my life I would be done with that. I personally feel like if I brought a child into this world and took them traveling, it would be a sacrifice. It just wouldn't hit the same. It wouldn't hit the same to travel with a kid. I'd have to take care of them, and I already have 2 dogs to take care of that I view as my literal children. I just don't care to have children because of all the things that I want to do in this life, that I want to achieve in this life. In terms of like my friend group, I very much exhibit motherly traits. I like to take care of my friends, and I like to make sure that they're doing okay, especially, when we're drinking and things like that. But in terms of a kid, I just don't see that for my future. So after multiple conversations with Gio, not me like putting that onto him, it's actually been him coming up to me and being like, hey, I thought about this and I feel the same way, or like, let's expand more on this thought process or whatever. It really was just us communicating about it, and we've come to realize that like, we just don't want kids. I'm very grateful that he agrees with me in that aspect, because that'd be a different story if he didn't. But again, like, I know this man, I've been with him for like, coming up next month, we've been together for 8 years at that point. There's a reason why I felt comfortable talking to him about this idea, and it's literally because of our past and how we've never talked about kids before, or we never cared to. The biggest question that I wanted to ask him was just never. Like, how would you feel about the word never having kids? And he's okay with that. If we were at a point in our lives where we wanted kids, and we've talked about this as well, we would figure all of that out. But as long as we were okay with never having kids, then like, that's all that mattered. I've had multiple comments. I mean, just from my mom as an example of her asking me questions such as like, you're gonna be so lonely, like, what are you gonna do? Who's gonna take care of you whenever you're older? I just don't think we should be having children to take care of us when we're older. That burden and responsibility should not be thrust onto our children. And I just wouldn't want to have kids before I'm ready to begin with. But also it's like, that's why you have a 401k. That's why you have a Roth IRA. That's why you set yourself up financially for success. You set yourself up for retirement early on, so that way you don't have to worry about those things whenever you do get older. I mean, those are all questions that like, it makes sense to deal with, just because I feel like a lot of our society is very much rooted in like procreation and motherhood or whatever, and it's like really taboo for whatever reason to not want to have kids. The only reason why I share this is in case other people relate to what I'm talking about. That's just kind of where I stand, and again, if you have opinions, keep them to yourself. That's all I have to say about that. Next up, something that's a little bit more lightweight, I guess. What is one thing that you're obsessed with right now besides the dogs and Gio? The new house. Because, dude, I just can't wait for my moving vlog to show you guys what this house looks like and to do like a little empty house tour. I've just been on Pinterest, on Amazon, on TikTok, like looking up all sorts of home decor things. My style of home decor is very much retro. There's a name for it. I don't know if it's necessarily boho. It might be like more modern. I really like terracotta, sage, like those earthy colors, but like with a pop of color. I mean, you guys have seen my bed frame. It's literally terracotta orange. We just love pops of color. So I've just been looking at different throws, colorful rugs. Dude, like give me a rug that's like teal, orange, yellow, red. Like I just want all the retro vibes. So yeah, a lot of home decor right now, and I just can't wait to really spruce this place up. What do you and Gio like to do for date nights? Honestly, we are so bad at getting out of the house. It's something that we have been trying to work on. A couple days ago, you guys saw we went paddleboarding, and I think that's gonna be like a weekly thing now where we go paddleboarding because we, bought a paddleboard. Typically, we just like to cook together, like cook a pretty detailed, I wouldn't even say extravagant, but just a meal that's very much detailed, and then we just watch a movie. So over the past like week and some change, we watched Dune and then Dune 2, which those movies were crazy, by the way. I've never read the books, but those movies were insane. And then before Dune, we watched The Hunger Games. All of The Hunger Games were leaving Netflix on May 31st. So when I tell you we binged the entire Hunger Games series for 4 days straight, every single night, and we loved it. Yeah, movie dates are like a pretty big thing in this household. In the foreseeable future, paddleboarding, and just any physical activity. We love going bouldering together. We just have to do it a little bit more. Next up, somebody asked, how is meal prepping going for you guys? Oh my gosh, actually so good. I mean, I guess we don't meal prep per se, but as you guys know, like after Portland, Gio and I were pretty dead set on just wanting to eat at home. If you guys know about my little stomachache story and whatnot, for the past year after my, I don't even want to call it like diagnosis, but back in 2022, I went to see a GI doctor for my stomach issues because growing up, every like 2 months or so, I would have the worst, like most debilitating stomach pain that would lead to me, hyperventilating, having panic attacks, passing out. I would literally pass out in the bathroom from how much my stomach hurt and just the lack of oxygen going into my head because of my little panic attacks and me hyperventilating. I just never realized, I didn't know what it was until I went to a GI doctor. My parents didn't really rely on modern medicine, I guess, to take care of us. So they never told me about a GI doctor. I don't even think they knew what a GI doctor was. At least I didn't. So whenever Gio suggested for me to go see a GI doctor, I was like, what is a stomach doctor? Like there are doctors that specialize in just your gastrointestinal tract. So I saw this doctor, she ran a couple tests on me, and it turns out, I mean, not only am I lactose intolerant for one, but I just had a very inflamed GI tract. Like the walls of my stomach were just so inflamed from eating like super greasy, fast foods, spicy foods, that I would just have really bad stomach pain. And as a result of that, just knowing that now, because before I didn't have answers, once I had answers for the next year after that, I kid you guys not, I could barely even touch sriracha. I didn't eat sriracha, actually. I was eating the most basic bland food because I was just so like deathly afraid of anything triggering my stomach pain. And it wasn't until our Portland trip where I was like more comfortable exploring different cuisines and just different food overall without having this like debilitating, crippling anxiety surrounding food. And I mean, I can make another video about that another day in regards to like relationship with food, because I didn't even realize that I had a bad relationship with food until I saw this GI doctor, and I was like, holy shit, eating food makes me anxious. So that's like a whole other story in itself, and I'll definitely make sure to put a trigger warning prior to this question. But after Portland, after I realized that like I can in fact have flavor in my food and enjoy it and not feel these anxious feelings towards it, we really got into meal prepping. And it's all because of me, in the sense that like I needed to be enabled to try new things because Gio was very much open to trying everything. It was just him waiting on me to kind of catch up to him type of thing. And once I was like, green light, let's freaking go, is when we went, full sent that shit. You know what I'm saying? We did meal prepping for a month and a half, and we cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was like every Sunday we would dedicate 4 to 5 hours or so to cooking everything. All of our recipes we got from Instagram, just things that we would see in our Explore feeds, and we just basically trained our Explore feeds and the algorithm to show us meal preppable recipes. And we would just save it to a collaborative folder. Like you can literally add people to this saved folder on Instagram. And so we would just share recipes with each other and just do those recipes. If they were easy enough, we would kind of swap out ingredients here and there, but still make the base of the recipe and whatnot. But after a month and a half of doing it, now that it's kind of set in our routine, we felt a little bit more comfortable to fan out. Now that we kind of knew what we liked to eat and whatnot, we would just kind of go to the grocery store, pick our meats, our veggies and stuff, cook off a whim. Like if we were hungry for something and we had chicken wings in the refrigerator, we would just look up a recipe on Instagram, carry it out, especially because a lot of the spices that are used in these Instagram recipes are already things that we have at home. And then we would just kind of get vegetables that are not very niche. Like I'm not gonna get bok choy, I'm gonna get asparagus or broccoli. We love broccoli. It's just versatile vegetables that you can just have in any meal, as well as bell peppers and onions. We've been pickling our onions, so even if we have a super basic meal like ground beef and rice, we'll just kind of throw some pickled onions in there, call it a day. It's actually what we ate last night. I guess meal prepping isn't going well because we're not meal prepping, but cooking at home has been a complete 180 from what it's been last year. This time last year, we were eating like 6 out of 7 days a week. Now we probably eat in at home. We cook 6 out of 7 days a week, and we probably eat out once a week. It's been insane. It's been really, really good for us, but also our wallets and my stomach, because everything that we're cooking, we know what goes in it, and I just feel comfortable eating it. So yeah. Next up, what is your biggest piece of relationship advice? If there's any disagreement or any argument, it's not you versus your partner. It's not one person trying to beat the other person. You're not trying to one up this person. You're not trying to win over this person. That's not how we should look at a relationship. It's you two versus the problem. With that comes a level of trust, a level of communication that needs to be had, as well as a level of like understanding that whatever this person is saying, you have to trust that they're not trying to hurt you in that process. And if it does hurt you, we have to take a step back and think, does this person have my best interests at heart? Why is he or she saying the things that they're saying? And just really separate yourself from like the emotional mind effery that happens whenever you're like in a really high stress environment, like an argument and whatnot. And so, I mean, I could say all these things about trust and communication. All in all, I think the most important thing to understand is that it's not you versus them. It's you two versus the problem. Having that level of trust in your partner to know that you guys are in this together is something that'll set you up for a lot of success. Next up, have you ever been in a long distance relationship? Advice if you have. Yes. Actually, and it was with Gio. It was after the first year of us dating. We actually hadn't even hit a year yet, and I had to move to Michigan for an internship for 3 months. Granted, we did see each other twice within that 3-month time span, but the longest time that I actually spent away from Gio was around a month and a half to 2 months. It was brutal, but all in all, I think the most important thing that needs to be upheld is communication and trust. Obviously, trust is earned, not given, but through communication, trust can build. Keeping in touch with your partner, not at all times, but just keeping each other in the loop of what is going on, FaceTime dates, having a set time in the day or the week where you're like dedicating that time to each other and solely each other is very important. Like there were a couple times within the 2-month time span that we didn't see each other where, not that I was losing the spark by any means, but obviously like the physical connection isn't there because you're not, So that was a little bit difficult, but I think what kept the spark alive is through our conversations, we would talk about seeing each other again and what we would do and things like that, where we would go, dates and stuff like that. So it kind of helped keep the hope going, the spark going. Effort goes on both ways. Long distance is very, very difficult, but as long as you guys communicate and are on the same page about things, then I think you'll be fine. This one's a little bit loaded, but what do you think about long-term girlfriend of 5+ years without a ring? Seems to be lots of bad rep. I mean, I'm about to hit 8 years, okay? All I'm gonna tell you is that it's nobody's mother effing business other than you and your partners. First and foremost, Gio and I have been together again for 8 years, right? 4 of those years were in college, where we had no money, trying to find scraps to make ends meet. Where, like, what do you think is gonna happen there? Am I gonna get proposed to there? No. Like, we were trying to survive. It was literally fight or flight, and we were fighting, okay? Like, we were fighting tooth and nail to make it the next day, and there was no room to talk about marriage. And even then, after I graduated college, it was like those 4 years after I left college were so turbulent because of the first corporate job that I had that landed me in the hospital for sepsis because my body was shutting down from the stress that I was going through from that job. Then moving cities to Austin to work for a corporate company for 2 years just to quit and then do content creation full time, where I've only been a year and some change in, I guess like a year and a half at this point, figuring out how stable this is going to be in order to plan for a wedding, for a house, things like that. Me personally, I don't see where in that time frame we would be able to have a wedding in which we would both be satisfied with the financial state that we were in for those for very pivotal years of our growth and development. I feel like there's a lot of backstory, right? Not that you need to explain yourself to anybody, and not that I need to explain myself to anybody either, but I think that as long as you and your partner are on the same page about everything, you know what his or her intentions are, you guys communicate about it, that's all that matters. I've had plenty of conversations with Gio and vice versa. We are very much in tune with where we're at in this process. It would be one thing for you to be left completely in the dark and you just truly do not know where your future lays or lies with this person. But I think it's another thing to not only know the history of what you and your partner have been through, have a realistic understanding of like where you're at right now and if you're even ready for financially for something like that, as well as like communicating about wanting to go ring shopping or picking their brain about marriage and things like that to begin with. There's just so many things that come into play. In my eyes, time doesn't really matter as long as you're on the same page. Asterisks. As long as you're on the same page. If you're kind of left in the dark, confused about something, it's up to you to have that conversation with your partner and just observe their reaction, but without communication, like you're just gonna constantly be left in the dark, assuming things that might not even be beneficial to you. Like you might get into like a spiral of bad thoughts, negative thoughts, had you have just like spoken to them instead. So in the words of my therapist, if they're not feeding, fucking, or financing you, who gives a freak about what they think? That's my opinion on that. This is a fun one. Do you think you guys would ever want to live a van lifestyle and road trip? I don't know about like van life. It's something that I've thought about like very deep in the back of my mind, but we would not be opposed to living like nomads and just kind of like traveling everywhere for like an extended period of time. I think that would be so fun because we have so many plans to travel to so many different places. Like I don't want to go to your typical Mexico or Florida or whatever. Like I'm trying to go to motherfucking Belgium. Like I'm trying to go to Brazil. There are so many places in the world where I want to visit that are just like not the typical touristy destinations, I feel. I mean, and this is why we don't want to have kids, right? Because we just feel like we have so many things to see and so many things to do. Ain't no time for kids. But I don't know about van life per se, but just like extended traveling as a whole, super down. If there's anything that I'm saving for, it would be that. Hi friends, this is definitely like, you know, different hair, different makeup, different rock on my finger from whenever I filmed that video, but I just wanted to do like a dedicated outro for this. And it's so crazy because whenever I filmed that video, I obviously was not engaged and now I am. So I cannot wait to like take you guys along this whole entire journey of this past week because I literally vlogged me suspecting everything and just my family and friends' reactions. But Gio and I got engaged on Wednesday. So today is the 29th, which is the same day that this video is going up, but we got engaged on Wednesday, so June 26th. That date is forever planted in my head. Yeah, I just wanted to do a dedicated outro for this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed and took a couple tips away from this. Clearly, it got me, you know, wifed up, you know what I'm saying? But I'll post a couple of like the engagement pictures up here for you guys to see. Thank you so much already for all of the love for our like announcement post and everything. It has just been a whirlwind, and again, I'm gonna keep this short. I can't wait to take y'all along, but subscribe, like, do all the things, and I will talk to you guys later. So bye.